Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
I'm going to go grab my coffee.
Joe's grabbing coffee here at Youngstown Studio live on
Is that your announcer voice,
on
by the
Friday.
way?
No. Let me see. What's my announcer voice? Actually, that may have been it. Youngstown Studio, where we go live every morning to talk to you, to hear from you, to rev you up in the morning. And don't forget, you can always call in 330-595-1600. The number is on the screen. Call and argue with us or tell us how much you love us, or just type it in the chat if you don't want to do that. That's a huge cup.
Heck yeah.
Wow. How many ounces is that?
5,326.
I feel like that's an exaggeration.
Might be.
But
Might be.
Might be.
All right. I want to talk about something right out of the gate because I think we're going to spend a bunch of time on this. Before I do that, do you have anything that is not as awesome as what I'm about to say?
I am sure not. No.
Okay. The Voters' Rights Act occupied the Supreme Court yesterday. Tons of presentations, and it was all freaking awesome. Okay.
I missed all of this.
Okay.
You have to fill me in.
Okay. Voting Rights Act is basically a legal way of sort of stacking the deck for minority groups so that they have representation in places where they didn't have representation. So districts were specifically drawn to overrepresent minority groups so that on the larger scale, they can participate in weighted averages above other people.
Overrepresent for a weighted average.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so basically what it is if you had racial minority groups that would never in a million years have gotten elected, they would have no representation in their local, state, and in federal government. And so on purpose, I'm going to call it gerrymandering, but these districts were basically established so that they would have more. They would actually have dominance in certain areas, right?
Okay.
Which on its face, like when you take something that is mathematically unsound and for a temporary period of time, you need to mess with the math to get the outcome that you're looking for. You just have to be honest. That's what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, if everybody can agree that, the end, they're comfortable with a little bit of cheating or making those odds bad, things that we would normally reject for the small sake of getting an end that you're looking for. And then systemically, when we've altered the machine so that it doesn't have biases that are built into its math, then you get rid of the weighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, we do this in polling, right? So if you were to take a poll and you were to sample an equal number of people, you poll Republicans and Democrats, and so you would think that would be a pretty fair representation of what's going to happen if you equally poll, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you start messing with the math and maybe giving advantage to people who have voted in the past as a higher probability that just because they say they would vote, that they actually vote, all right, you rejiggered the math. Now it's an unequal sampling of the people that you asked, but it gets you closer to the actual result of the poll. So if your polls match up, then your math is pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you ask it and it said that somebody was going to win by 4 points, and in the end result they were going to they won by 4 points, you're like, okay, our weighting actually gave us the purpose that we intended, and that was good weighting. Now, what if you can weight polls because polls make a suggestion that someone's ahead, right? And then the people are less motivated to go vote because it looks like a sure thing. So you weight your polls now, not for an end of being an accurate poll, but actually manipulating the results of an actual election. You can do that in the other direction as well. So in politics, we get really good at having really good intentions on the onset and completely corrupting afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So going back to the Voter Act, stacking these decks, do you think that it's a good idea, bad idea? Do you think you're playing with fire? Do you think it's something that we should participate in? Being racist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And discriminating against other races for the benefit of other, one race or a couple races.
So it's not making everything even, it's actually giving an advantage to a group.
Yeah.
That I don't understand. Why wouldn't we just try to even it out? Why does anyone have to have an advantage?
And you can have a conversation about disenfranchisement and all the psychologies that go into giving a disadvantage to a group. A colorblind deal would be, we're just going to make it pure and fair.
Yeah,
and
everybody's equal.
Now, what would happen if you made it colorblind and fair and there were 0 minorities in Congress? 0, no representative. So you might have a district that is primarily black, and since maybe they don't vote or they're a low probability, the whites in that area end up voting in higher numbers, and now no representation for that group. Is that problematic?
It could be, but then that's a problem of getting that demographic to get involved.
To vote, right.
Yeah.
Understanding what's causing them not to vote, and if they
And
have a
that's
majority population.
You're solving.
Exactly.
Work
But
on that.
The political deal, where there's much more utility in being able to pack districts, right, and create gerrymandering for the end result, because you can use that in a lot of other ways. Marketing campaign to get more people to vote isn't as effective because you can't use it in cheating. Like, the Democrats assembled a huge advantage by using these subtle mathematical advantages and using racism and systemic racism as their predicate to do lots of unfair things. So it's almost like at a certain point, you have to decide whether or not there are no more systemic racism, and you've got to then acknowledge it and admit to it. And then all of those advantages crumble away. So do you think we still have systematic racism that is built into elections and politics and government?
Depending on how you look at it, I don't know if I use the term racism. I guess it could fall under that, or advantage. Is there advantagism? Like,
could be
overcompensating to give someone more advantage.
Okay. And how do you, what's the best way to write that? So let's just say I want to sell insurance, right? And I come into the game and I find all these established insurance people, right? They have the whole area locked up. They have agreements and contracts that people can only deal with them. And so they can't even talk to me as a new insurance salesman. And they got an advantage because they've been in the game longer than I have. And I'm just getting started, and they're not. And they've made it part of their mission to keep me out as much as doing that business. So how do you write that? What do you advise me to do to now compete in an area that, everybody's so far ahead of me that I can't even catch up to them?
And I feel like I've been in that situation. Like, I've been in a sales job where I was the new salesperson and everyone else has everything. So it's like, where exactly would you like me to go? That's their client. That's their client. That's their client.
So as an engineer, then you're like, hey, you know what? The new guys, like, I can't even tell people to get in the insurance field because they're going to come in there and find out all the people that's been there have it locked up. All right. What rule would you make, or what advantage could you give me? Right. And would it be fair? I mean, the end would be to get me into the game and then take the advantage away once I'm established. But in government, the taking away part never happens. Once an advantage is given, it becomes forever.
Yeah.
So what would you do?
I don't know.
All right. So let's dissect it a little bit.
Okay.
Free association means that a negotiation between two people are between us, and nobody can intervene. The government can't intervene in whatever it's between you and I. So if I'm threatened by somebody new coming into the game and I sign a 20-year contract with you, can anyone else intervene with that contract of making it so that I can't lock you up for 20 years? I can't forcibly inject competition in it to make you lose a customer to the new guy that comes into town.
Can anyone interject?
So is not that on the table where I can force people not to sign long-term contracts that keeps customers locked up so they couldn't go anywhere even if they wanted?
Maybe.
You can? You'd feel comfortable with that?
No.
Because there's other free association things that then become fair game as well.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you might not want those. You might not want this one, but you might not want those other ones. But when you take the principle of how our founding, right?
Uh-huh.
Even though it sucks and it's skewed where the powerful get more powerful and the merit gets rewarded, it stifles a different direction, and you don't like that. So what is it that what do you do? And some real world experiences that if you have a group of let's just say I open a business down here, the Youngstown Studio Incubator, right? And I'm seeing there's a lot of brand newbies come in, and so I start a company that basically befriends the public and say, we'll use barbershop because everybody knows that one, right? When people get in the hair industry, you have a bunch of students that come and cut on your hair. And it feels kind of good to give money to a company that's trying to help get new people established. And you're dealing with someone. You're not going to have people with 25 years experience, and you're kind of open to some mess ups or not as good as it could be, but you kind of feel good because you're helping someone else get started. Now that is free association. The consumers then can make the choice to support the people that are getting started out. The company can manage it and organize it so new people get started out. And I didn't have to take anything from any other person in order to force the new person into the marketplace. The people that really want minorities to be helped or new barbers to be helped or new insurance rep can rally around those people, and through the numbers, rather than forcing you to do something, supporting the people that you want to get integrated in the marketplace.
So kind of like when people advertise minority-owned business.
100%.
If you're passionate about that, go support that business.
100%.
You be the one that makes sure that
you don't end up breaking
thrive.
any of the rules. And through engineering, you could just take advantage of our principles and work within the confines of the real rules. Because once you break out and start forcing people to do something and cheating a little bit means that it gets magnified over time and it becomes a problem way down the road. That's the slippery slope argument that I always bring up. Like, you can do this thing and it might solve your short-term problem, but you're inventing a 20 years from now problem. Do you really want to do it now where you do the harder thing, but you can get to easier quicker? Or do you want to do the easy thing now and it's way effing harder in the future?
Because won't you ultimately get to the point where it's like, hey, well, you cheated a little bit to help them out. Now you have to cheat a little bit to help me out.
So, and that's the pursuit where you can't fight discrimination by using discrimination. That's it's just different discrimination, and you just took
sort
the
of
problem
going in circles
and threw it over here.
Yeah.
And that's, I can see why the liberals and Democrats did it the way that they did it. But there's a point where you have to pull the untruth out of the conversation now and then reapply a new lesser deal to it. Okay. So if there are, do you feel like in Congress and local and whatever, we have adequate representation for women and minorities?
I guess I've never really taken a look at who's in there, but I think so.
So should representation be a 1-for-1, where if you have 33% minorities in an area, then the representation should be 33% of the people that are in Congress? Would that be a good metric? Or would it be you have minorities that are spread out in other communities, and so they are the minority? So if the community, if there is a community that has dense population of Black, that one should definitely be represented because it's a majority of that population density. But it would be far lesser than the 33%. The aggregate would be less than 33%. But if you're like, hey, I want to go to an urban area that has a dense population of Hispanics, and then see who their representation is, and it's an Hispanic, you're like, okay, we nailed that one. And you go to a white community that has some Hispanic, some Black, and they're like, who's your representative? It's that guy. Nailed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's somewhere between those two ends where the direct is really good, but you also want to have some people sprinkled in there and see if that's actually happening. So if you had a boardman that had a Black representative, when their minority population, or they would be a minority population and whites would be a majority, you can see that happening and acknowledge the fact that we're not electing people with the sole stipulation that they be of your minority or your ethnic or whatever persuasion.
Yeah.
It's the person that can best represent you.
I was going to say, if a Black representative can just as well represent whites and Blacks, that's what I want.
Okay.
Like, I just want whoever is willing and open and able to represent everyone, I don't think I would require they be of the race that we're, trying to push or whatever. Like, I just want you to be the best person for the job, rather than, hey, we got to get a white person in here. We got to get a Hispanic person in here.
Yeah, you'd have to make that argument that only black people can conquer problems for other black people. A white person would never have the ability to represent me adequately, so there's no way that I can send a white person. That is extremely racist.
Yeah.
Right? Because you are saying that white people don't have the objectivity to be able to represent people of different skin colors.
Yeah. Why can't someone of one background listen to people of a different background and say, yeah, I see your point. Let's see what we can do. Why do you have to have the same skin color in order to be able to do anything for the entire area?
Yeah. And so, like, we don't have the luxury of just being able to wrecking ball it and start it from scratch and then do everything pure. We're at a certain point, and you can only slide it so that it's more fair, or slide it so it is more pure. And I think it was happening with, the Louisiana case, where if they do remove that voter act, right, and make it more pure, the Republicans 100% are going to pick up about 19 seats in Congress. Through the gerrymandering, they're probably going to lose 6 and gain 12. So you're looking at a swing of about 30 different and new representatives in Congress that give Republicans an extreme advantage.
It feels to me like we keep adopting methods of like saving people from themselves. If you are underrepresented because your community doesn't vote, that's your community problem.
Yes.
Why is it the rest of government's problem to figure out, well, they won't do it. How do we make it so that we can help them even though they won't do it? And we have to bend the rules and make stipulations and do little workarounds to save them from themselves. I'd be like, don't do it and see what happens. And if you don't like it, then you should do it. Like, oh, you didn't like how that worked out, but did you go vote? No. Then I don't know what to tell you. And then maybe they'll say, hey, guys, we don't like how this is working out. Let's go vote. Let's get involved. Let's run for whatever. Like, when is it the population's responsibility other than other people trying to just sort of drag them along when they clearly don't care enough?
Yeah. And I always disagree with like the get out to vote effort and like really beating people over the head with that it's their civic duty.
The like rock the vote.
Yeah. And
stuff.
I'm like, F it. If you haven't impressed me to the point where I feel like leaving my house to give you you want my vote more than I want to give it to you, F you. Be more inspiring and motivate me off that couch. If the voting block that you're going after doesn't vote, that again, it's a your problem thing, and you gotta be a little bit better, do a little bit more.
Like, I'll admit, there have been elections in the past, whether it was presidential, whether it was local, levy, whatever it is, that I could honestly say, I really don't care.
It's exactly right.
If they win, if this passes, if it doesn't pass, I don't care either way. And I didn't go vote. I'm not going to complain. I didn't care. And I still don't. But if you do, then go vote. And that's on you. That's on you taking the initiative, not saying, oh, we need to pass a law that pulls this out of us, regardless of what we do.
All right. So the cultural argument against that would be minority groups don't feel like they make an impact in voting. They don't get listened to anyway. So it doesn't matter if I frickin' vote. I don't trust those people. And even if I voted, I'm going to be washed out by a bunch of other people. It's not worth the effort. I don't feel obligated and I don't feel motivated to do it. So I'm just not going to do it, but I'm still going to complain about it. And even when you then hit me over the head with, well, if you didn't vote, don't complain thing, I don't care. I don't matter anyway. And so you have a group of people who, through the systematic racism that did exist, right? They are, the wind is taken out of their sails. They don't feel like they're part of the community. So then what's the obligation? You and I can say, well, I feel bad for you, but suck it up, buttercup, and participate. And then through that participation, it might end up that you culturally shift that voting, group. And now you end up caring a little bit more, but it's not my obligation to make you care. at
Yeah.
all, or how you feel about it. I didn't suppress you. I didn't demotivate you. I didn't cause it be harder for you to vote than me. And you know, all of these other issues that are that sort of get tagged with the systemic part of racism. So if I go to a polling location that it takes me about 7 minutes to vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen the video footage of people waiting in 3-hour lines to vote?
Yeah.
How the hell does that happen?
I don't know. I've wondered that too. I'm always like, do I just live in an incredibly small town? Because I'm usually in and out.
Okay. So yes, you do have population densities, right? And you have more people than where I live. You might have 10 times the amount of people that I have. Now, when polling locations put up voting machines and staffing, they're taking previous elections, right?
Yeah.
And setting up to serve the number of people that come to the polling location. So if your ass has never voted before and 10,000 other people have never voted before, they're not going to put enough voting machines for people who don't show up for a vote. They're accommodating the people who do. So it'd be super easy to create a formula that says how many voting machines and how much staff and how big of a voting location based on the expected number of voter turnout. And across the board, make every office that manages, voting, your board of elections are in charge of this, mandate it that you use that formula. And when there's a 3-hour line, it wasn't because it was disenfranchisement. It was because this is the first effing time you voted in a really long time.
This neighborhood never comes out to vote. This year they did.
Yeah. So it might take you 10 years to get maybe 5% better results, and then they add more voting machines, and the next year you get 5% more people that vote, and they add more, and eventually your community will look like my community, because my community has a really high registered voter to voter turnout relationship. I think there was, screw this up, I'm sure, but I think there was of all the possible voters here in Youngstown, 17% of them voted in the last election, where in my community, it was 60% of the people that turned out that actually could vote. Those are dismal numbers.
Wow. Yeah. And it's almost like if something has to either break or if something sort of has to be a little bumpy, what do you want it to be? The culture of voters and people that haven't voted, and now you have to start caring and you have to actually go out and vote, or the government and reworking things to try to accommodate them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if we can get the victim industry to stop with the racist disenfranchisement talk, tell them to the rules that govern are equally applied to everybody. Stop making freaking excuses. Pretend like this is day one of everything, and don't bring all of your history up to this moment. It can get fixed quicker than, convincing people after they've been told their entire life that they're a victim of everything to actually care about stuff. So the responsibility is on both sides. The people who caused the problem are long dead, right?
Yeah.
But the effects of what they did still resonate with us today. But the people of today who are still driving stakes into you're a victim of this and reminding you that they're equally as guilty as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, because instead of, you're not even bettering the person. When you give handouts or you give preferential treatment, it may help someone in the moment, and maybe that was necessary then. But eventually, they've got to go out on their own and make it on their own. And it's almost like you have these people in these leadership positions or these government positions that are like, don't want you to go out on your own. Don't want you to learn how to be self-sufficient because I can use that as leverage. If you're like, what's it matter? I'm a victim. I'm stuck. No one listens to me.
Host.
I can't
you
get
are now
any
in
better.
The host room and can manage your callers from the call-in
and
studio
leaders
web
come in and they
interface.
say, I don't know what to tell you. It's been how many years? You have the ability to do this. You are on your own. The other side can say, what jerks they are. They don't care about you. I care about you. I'm going to help you out still. And then you look good while crippling them. And they've been taught to not see that. I'm not seeing that you're actually keeping me down. You're not letting me better myself. It's just, oh, nice people want to help, and these jerks want to be selfish.
Yeah, but that reinforcement, like if a parent did that to a kid and kept control and dominance over them by telling them they're not good enough, smart enough, that's like emotional bullying, right? That keeps people from being something that they could be, because you're constantly reminding them that it's never going to work out. They're just that Debbie Downer. But there's a whole industry in that in the victim industry that make gobs of cash and have total relevance because the problem exists. They don't want the problem to go away. They wouldn't have anything to do. They built their identity around your peril. So.
Yeah. And if anyone disagrees with us, by all means, I'm just waiting for people to be like, but.
Yeah. Brass tacks. It's really going forward, accepting everything that it is. And if you really want things to be better, what you do from this point forward, and just reminding you of something you can't do about, there's nothing to engineer. There's no problem to fix. So the people who want it, or, the benefit that you got by breaking the rules get eroded. Now you're back in a spot where you have to fight for the cheating that you once had. And that's where we're at. And this turnabout, I give this era the moniker of this is a turnabout era. You're going to see it all over the place, and people are going to be celebrating. It all sucks to me because I'm telling you, I could have told you from the very beginning that turnabout will always happen, right? And if you are celebrating that you got a good deal, and then the good deal gets used against you in the future, that's just the balancing out of what should be. And fairness, equality, colorblindness, all of the virtues that go along with treating other people fairly with justice, right? Is what television, entertainment, all of media used to be about. And then somehow we got into this, we're going to be a serial killer, but we're going to be a good serial killer. And I'm like, time out, right?
Yeah.
Serial killer is never the option, but even though you like
but
what
it's
this
a vigilante,
that's exactly what it is. And that's a dangerous thing, because once the vigilante gets used against you, you know what you're going to be praying for? The fair justice system, right?
Yeah.
Because it sucks to not have, that foundation to lean against when it's being directed at you.
I was just thinking, something you said made me think Gavin Newsom came to mind. What did I just read? I can't remember. I don't even think it was on this subject, but.
So there was a lady on CNN a couple nights ago that was having an argument with Piers Morgan, and it was pretty good back and forth. And I've heard this before, and I disagreed with it inside, but it wasn't worth the time to be able to argue because whatever. And she was adamant that black people cannot be racist, right? They cannot be racist. And Piers said, no, you absolutely can be racist. If the definition applies, it applies to you. But there's sort of been this lanyard with a free pass that when black people are acting racist, that it's acceptable and it's permissible because this is what is shifting the power dynamic, and they're able to play against it because they're allowed to break the rules. And there's danger in someone given a free pass and being able to break the rules, as we're seeing it all over the rest of our culture.
Yeah, nobody sees the hypocrisy of claiming there's been years of oppression and then moving into feeling okay to oppress others because your ancestors were oppressed. And it's like, no. Yeah, I've seen videos. There's one video that thinks every, what did she say it was? I can't remember if it was like MLK Day or something. All white people should acknowledge that day by sending money to black people they know. Venmo, do whatever, and that's how you should celebrate because we don't have all these advantages and stuff. And I was like, what advantage do you not have that someone else here does? Like, how are you oppressed? And I'm not saying racism doesn't exist for minorities in any capacity. I would never say that a person of color or whatever background has never experienced it in their daily life. I'm sure they have. I'm talking about the general, the system, the daily, the man is keeping me down and that's how this country works.
But there
That
is
I don't see.
systemic racism still.
Just not the way they think it is.
Just period, definitionally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Everybody, I think when people hear there is racism, their brains go to the whites are holding down blacks, Hispanics.
So if you were to
everyone
say
else.
on principle, right, taking race, ethnicity, religion, all of that out, right? And really, if you are able to take any of those groups and either include only them or exclude only them, that is racism. You're making a decision based on one of those things. So if you blindly, if you were to go into college, right, you put your application and they don't ask what sex you are, right? You don't even want to know your name because that might let them know that you're a female if you've got a feminine sounding name. But it's blind, just your academics, you're a number, and it tells you what you know and what you can do. And admission is completely blinded, right?
Yeah.
That would be the opposite of racism. If there is a special pass that you get because you're a minority or because you're a woman, is that not discriminating the seat that you took away from someone only because you are a certain gender or a certain race? That is racism.
I've known people that work in HR that have a position to fill and have to wait and wait and wait, even though they're getting multiple applicants because they are required to hire a minority or someone of a certain color.
Yeah, and so you can see why if you had a law firm that was underrepresented for having no black people, no women whatsoever. It's a boys club, white men club only, right? It doesn't say that on the door. It just so happens that every single person in there, because of when the law firm was founded in the 1920s, that one white person has a preference to hire another white person and they have another white person. And because of their preferences, you have a whole law firm that's white. Okay, so you have three choices here. You force them to hire some black people or minorities or women, or you start your own damn law firm. And everybody who says, all these law firms are all whites, I'm a woman or I'm black, I want to have a preference too. I want to have a law firm that's a bunch of black people. So you go down and say, can somebody buy a building, get licensure, staff up a company, create a law firm with a black person and all the black friends that they have and their preferences for hiring black attorneys, and have it as the black law firm. And then everybody who wants a black goes to the black law firm. And now we've segregated it, but we did segregate it based on preference rather than coercion.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to go then to the black law firm and force them to hire some whites because whites aren't represented. Give everybody an opportunity. And as long as there's not anybody stopping someone from opening your own black law firm, then you could do whatever you want.
And if it naturally becomes that, it naturally becomes that. The people themselves did it. There wasn't a law that said you have to hire this person or you can't hire this person. It's you had the right to start a business like they had the right to start a business. Nobody told you you can't.
Right. And so it checks both boxes for me. Number one, freedom of association. I can deal with whoever I want, and I don't have to tell you why I'm doing it. I can do it. Now, number two, I didn't coerce anybody. I didn't force anybody to do anything. So let's just say law firm down the street only happened because of who was there and they were just having their own preference and they weren't trying to stop a black law firm from coming into being, then they're following all the rules by it's just freedom of, association again. And competition. You basically have the preference of consumers to then pick somebody. So if you had a sorority or a fraternity and they wanted to be a black only fraternity, you'd have to check the same boxes that I did. Open it up to everybody, have the inclusion, the process. The black people that are in there right now can pick other people that come in as being black person. If a white person's like, hey, that's not fair, they can go start a fraternity and pick all the people that they want. There's nobody can force you into a preference.
Yeah. Jerry says, was Joe Biden a racist when he said he will pick a black female VP?
Yes, that is racism or preference.
Yeah. Again, I feel like the term racism has a very sharp connotation. And when we say it's racism, we're not saying Joe Biden or anyone hates a race or is like a jerk that has this prejudice against people. We're saying they can conduct the act of racism without actual like bigotry or hatred or anything of that nature. But what they're doing is still racism. So if he says, I'm going to pick a black person for this position because they are black, is that not racism?
So it depends whose definition, right? If it is by their definition racist. So the people who are actually holding the mallet that punish people for racism, it meets their definition. By my definition, it's preference. So so flip the script. This is the easiest test. So Donald Trump says, you know what? My Secretary of Defense, I need to hire a white guy, right? Me, definitionally, he had a preference for a white guy. He hired a white guy. The other side, right? The people who do not like Donald Trump would say that is a racist maneuver because he excluded a black person. He didn't do either of those things. He may have stacked the cabinet with a majority of white person, white people, and black people are looking up and say, he must be racist because he didn't pick any black people, but you have to make that case where he had somebody who was better merited, that he liked better, that he felt was served in that capacity, and excluded those. There's more to say. You can say it might be racism because, it could be, or it could be just a guy that picked all his friends and he happens to have a bunch of friends that are white and his cabinet became white because of those preferences. So there's more to say. I can't, discard the charge that he's a racist, but it requires more evidence as far as I'm concerned.
So if someone says, I have this position to fill and I want to fill it with a person of this background, this skin color, because I want to look as though I have a lot of diversity.
Yeah, that's a preference. And if I said, I think the little people of the world are underrepresented in government, so I'm going to run for office and my cabinet is going to be all little people. I'm appealing that if I bring little people in, that little people are going to be like, hey, those are me. And I take the risk of excluding full-size people versus little people. But at least I was honest and there's nothing. What do you call that? Is that sizist? Is that
sizist?
I don't know. Whatever that is, you can charge me with that.
Yeah.
Right. But I could say, well, no, I did that because there's 1 million voters that are little people too. And I wanted those little people votes. And so I hired the little people.
To them, it's good marketing.
That's exactly right.
So when is it marketing preference or racism? Intention?
Well, you nailed it with if you have hatred for, or you think something is superior to, right? And if it is based on the race, like if you say that I don't like, I think little people have a stereotype that they're XYZ, right? And you use hate to guide you rather than preference. Like, there's a lot of preference that's going to be guided by hate, but like, again, you have to make the charge of why you think that it has seeds were sown. Are you allowed to be racist?
In some places, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Some, I feel like there's rules against it in some.
Okay, give me an example where you think racism starts being bad or starts something that should be punished.
I think if you're doing it with the sole purpose of, I don't like you because of the color of your skin, so I won't let you.
So you're not, let's just say you held that preference. When you look at that race, that gender, that ethnicity, you don't like them at all. Personally.
Yeah.
Right.
Having not known them, know nothing about them.
You're allowed to hold those opinions of those people. You're allowed to have hatred for those people.
Yeah.
For sure. When does it become something that I can say you are a something?
When you act on it.
Okay.
When you harm them because you don't like them.
So far, so good. Lashing out at them or causing damage to them.
When you don't allow them to join any sort of public whatever, school system, team, organization, because you don't like that race. I would think that is. If it's something open to the public and everyone, and you're like, except you, I don't like your race. You don't think that's harmful racism?
I'm thinking through it, because where does it go from preference to whatever? Because you got to prove the motive. And I could just as easily saying, well, I don't want to be racist, but there's a lot of people that I already do like. And so I'm not going to include you, but there's too many people to include to get hung up on why you were not included.
If there's a school and they're going to start a baseball team,
Right.
and the school officials or maybe the coach is like, yep, this is this school's baseball team, and all kids are welcome to play except those group of kids. Well, why? I just don't like them. I don't want them on my team. Would that be harmful, hurtful, racist actions?
Two sides of the argument, including them. What is the benefit? And just following your preferences and excluding them.
It's a school team. All kids are allowed to play. You're playing baseball for the school.
Okay.
Except you guys. Are you disruptive? No. Are you not athletically talented? No, you're fine. Just don't like your race.
Okay. In a public position, something you make. So if I have a restaurant, okay, and I have the ability to either serve or not serve, but I've got a dark heart and I don't like certain people. And since I'm allowed to serve anybody I want, there's a lot of more people that want to be served than I can even keep up with. So excluding you frees it up for the people that I really like. Do I have to serve everyone?
I mean, like by law, we're not going to force you. But if it's known that you're practicing that and someone's like, hey, you're out of here, I don't want you working here anymore.
And so like the birthday cake thing for gay and lesbian couples, right?
Mm-hmm.
I bake cakes and I can bake cakes for a lot of people, but I don't like those people or I disagree with those people.
Yeah.
You can't force me to bake a
Can't
cake.
force you to do it.
Right?
I could say, I don't agree with your ideals and I'm not going to give your company my business. Okay.
And it's an unpopular thing. So consumers can then say, okay, well, I'm going to open a bakery that does just that.
Yeah.
And have preference in that single department and compete against you. And when I go to the public and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to talk all about how I am taking my preferred group of people and we're going to serve them well. Then the community can come and support the people that they also agree with.
Yeah.
So in a school like your baseball team, if the coach doesn't like hiring a certain group and the school will only send money, or the state will only send money to schools who participate in fairness and equality, then they can decide that the cost of having a preference that is unpopular is the punishment through the marketplace.
Yeah.
All it's going to require is you have enough good people, right, that haven't been stained and put into a camp that truly can look at it and say, you're offering it to only one group, and I don't like that you're only offering a group, so I'm just not going to spend money with you and put you out of business.
Natural repercussions if the community finds out and they're like, this school is supporting this coach that is not allowing this race to play. I'm not having my kid go there. Pulling my kid. I'm not supporting those games. Nobody shows up to the games, and let them sort of suffer until they can't do it anymore. Is that what you mean? Like face the natural consequence of others not tolerating it?
Again, this is why Joe's a cynic, because we're basically, for those just joining us, we're dissecting this and thinking out loud, engineering through this problem and pointing out that there's no outcome here that is just good. This is not a binary decision where you're just going to have a good and fix everything, because every solution or change that you make from this point leads to further crippling in a different department. And so really you're choosing between tyranny, where the people who are right and noble just tell everybody what they can and can't do, right? So our freedoms lend us to have those associations and preferences and choices. But what if you have bad people who start making preferences and whatever? You have to have a counterweight to that and penalize them a certain way. So then you go to the consumers, they're the counterweight. And if the consumers are all good and noble, then they only buy from people who are also good and whatever. And you can establish the standards of virtue, but you have to have a standard that everybody can agree to and accept. The more bad people you make, you can't create a counterweight that's big enough that avoids tyranny, right? From the controlling forces, because honestly, it's going to get so bad that tyranny has to be your only and best option. So if you have only chaos, everybody's say, bring in the military. We don't care if we have absolutely no rights. It's so bad. Take over because we F this thing up so bad that subtleties can't control it.
This is interesting. It reminds me, just a couple weeks ago, we were out running errands, and my son and I, we just so happened to drive past the daycare, and there was a bunch of kids playing outside, and all of the kids were African American. And my son goes, "Is that daycare only for African American kids?" And I was like, "Oh, no, buddy, like not in 2025. No, I'm sure it's just a coincidence that just happens to be the only kids out right now." And then my brain went, is it? Like, could somebody enforce that? Like, I'm sure this daycare isn't. But it got me thinking, like, could we though? Could we still have a place that's like, sorry, no, I'm not accepting your kid if they are of a different race or whatever. And it just got me thinking, like, I don't know if that could be.
But there is a huge responsibility that we miss because we have too many dumb people that are involved in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you listen to your conspiracy theorists and slippery slopists because they have a longer vision. They have more of an attention span to ramifications for something that's happened or something that will. So for instance, we talked about this, you know, probably a year ago. Women, right? They go to the gym and they're uncomfortable around men. So they create a gym that no men are allowed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool as long as you're like, oh, I see the problem here. Women are uncomfortable and we got to cater to the uncomfort of one group, give them something that they are uncomfortable. So let's just say that you had a daycare and black families were like, our kids do not feel comfortable playing around white kids. So I'm going to create a black daycare so that they're not uncomfortable around people who are a different skin color. That slippery slope of catering to every need, there's going to be a group that you get to at a certain point where you're like, wait a minute, what if I want to go? What if the girl gym is better, right? There's way more women to choose from when I'm grunting and showing off my biceps. Their equipment is way better. The air conditioning is perfect. I don't have to deal with any of those people that I dislike at my gym. I want to go to the girl gym. And you halfway have to hear the argument because they might not be in your sex class, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you definitely discriminate against them if they all of a sudden want to join your place. And you almost have to discriminate against them. And so now I'm the public and I'm like, we want to preach fairness and non-discrimination, but you have to put a little asterisk next to it. Well, sometimes we're going to do discrimination. And the public's like, this is too complicated. Just give me a rule and say, do you want me to be racist? Do you want me to not be? Okay, you don't want me to be racist. Racist, not racist all the time, or some little bit of racism, okay.
Yeah.
You want me to discriminate, or don't you want me to discriminate?
I just the other day had to take this online training course, watch training videos, in order to help out when needed in the kids area at church. And one of the things was only women are allowed to change diapers. Mm-hmm. No men that are working in the kids area are allowed to change a diaper or take a kid to the bathroom. Only a female may do that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like everybody automatically in your head's like, oh, makes sense. Yeah, good rule. But then I think, interesting. That makes sense. It feels right. I get it.
It's discriminating.
But
this is a discrimination in the other direction now because all men are like, thank God I don't have to do that stupid job. And women are like, wait, non-shared responsibility. So then you're put at odds with one of those same turnabout messages.
Yeah.
And like, why the frick is this putting on me? This should be shared responsibility and fair. You get it sometimes. And so when it benefits you, you have a completely different opinion. When it's a principle, it's an easier thing to remember. Figuring out if something is a thing, and then knowing already because it's your principle, whether you're for it or not. And the problem is that sometimes your principles are messy and they don't feel good at all. They don't feel like they are the noble, their virtue, right?
Yeah.
But it's still fair. And you know why you did it and you had noble intentions. But the minute that you broke a principle, now you no longer have a principle. Principles are pretty damn important.
Yeah. What's interesting, so Julie was saying, have you ever been the recipient of white privilege? And I feel like we really need to look at what that means, white privilege, because my gut reaction is to say probably I probably have. But then I think, like, let's take the instance of like a police officer pulling someone over.
Mm-hmm.
If they're in a suburb with a white female, do you think they feel safer than if they're in an urban area with a black male? And if so, is that racist? Is that white privilege? Or is it risk assessment?
Well, let's use the gym thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what makes women want their own gym?
Probably comfortability, like feeling like I don't have to feel self-conscious around men.
Okay. So if you apply statistics on how men behave in a gym setting, not everybody, but statistically, so now we're willing to give a pass to solve a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say for that police officer looked at the same statistics, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a black person, or somebody dresses a certain way, or they drive a certain car, and statistically, you've then profiled and used an entire block of people and treat them differently based on statistics.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I were to go to my gym counterparts and say, hey, these women want to escape you because of the way that you behave, the way that you dress, the way that things you say to them, the things that you treat to them, I'm going to either fix this by telling all those people and marketing to them and telling them change behaviors, and then women won't want to run away from you. You'll be treated like somebody they want to be at the gym rather than they don't want to be at the gym. So the police officer is doing the exact same thing. We're taking a population of people who dress differently, behave differently, and so they get different treatment. If you took a 1-for-1, you took all bias out of the equation and you just put a person in front of it, and you could not reach some kind of, biased answer. Would a white person and a black person, without any context historically, would they be treated differently by a police officer? Well, if you watch camera footage from a police officer in interactions, I don't see a lot of skin color questions come in to play. I see conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I see behaviors. I see backtalk lipping.
Setting.
Right? I see aggressiveness. I see posturing. And if I'm a police officer and I've got to enforce laws, I look at people in what risk they pose to me, that I'm going to walk up to a car and this is going to be the last car that I walk up to. So I am going to behave different based on my risk assessment. And if you fall into the qualities, you can convert me and say, listen, I'm not one of those hunky guys that grunt and grab your butt and, whatever. I'm not one of those. Trust me. Like, I'm one of the good ones. Don't flee this gym because of that dude over there.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's why Planet Fitness has the lunk alarm.
Exactly. And so then you're going to say, well, no, it's your responsibility to go into your hunky community, change their behavior so that you're not a bigger risk when all I want to do is work out.
Yeah. I mean, if one police officer approaches a vehicle in an urban setting, maybe it's evening time or late at night, loud music coming from the vehicle, maybe you see some smoke coming out, maybe you smell weed, are you instantly in a different mindset, having not even seen the driver, don't even see what they look like, who they are? Take the exact same police officer and the exact same driver, put them in a suburb. Maybe it's daytime. Maybe there's no loud music. There's no smoke coming out of the car. Same guy approaches the same person in both situations. Do you not think those situations would be treated differently? Yes. Like, I've been pulled over before, just daylight, maybe going too fast. And could I be let go? Maybe. Is that why?
It's still one of the check boxes. The setting is part of it when a officer's doing a risk assessment, where you're at and what time of day. And if it's raining, like all of that stuff is part of the risk assessment.
Just like if I'm pulled over in the middle of the day for going a little too fast, I will most likely be treated differently. And I've had this to where I got pulled over at night when a cop saw me leave a bar. You just left a bar. It's at night. and you drove funny. This is the middle of the day. You drove also wrong. Two totally different situations. I bet that officer's in a totally different mindset.
Yeah. So the white privilege thing, you're going to have to give me a definition that's outside of these anecdotes that we just talked about here, where you could say that if you took somebody of my same age group that was a black guy and said he gets pulled over and I don't get it pulled over, then the science in me is going to kick in, and we're going to compare our behaviors, how we dress, how we talk, where we're hanging out, where we're going. And I bet you there are more differences other than my skin color that contribute to him being pulled over more than me. And so that's really most of the conversation. Jerry says that is what DEI was brought about for. And again, even like the small sampling, if we wanted to introduce different people into settings, and as part of an experiment, everybody knows what it is that we're doing, and we don't have it a major discriminatory factor on how they do things. If you want to like have an experiment just because the end that you want is more people in your place that is a certain persuasion and you do it and it's short term, then fine. But if it becomes a sole practice where there's pressure put on companies to create those associations outside of the risk that they're taking, if Delta Airlines wants to say, hey, we don't have any black pilots, so let's put on a program to try attract black pilots to our deal because maybe they're not getting our messaging, whatever. And they're free to do that. And then maybe they get some black pilots that pass all the classes and they become pilots, and they sit there and think like, had we not made it our purpose for that, then these guys never would have ended up in our employment. And they're great pilots. They just happen to be of a different skin color. Versus saying, we don't have enough black pilots. You're going to go get you some black pilots. And I don't even care if they pass the test. And then the consumers that are in the back have to look up and not know whether or not that's a qualified person or that's the one you force fed into the system. I would, if you said my DE policies are, I want to attract more of a diverse group of people into my employment. Cool. That's your choice.
Yeah. I feel like we can go back to that, but I want to address Julie's comment while we're on the subject down a little bit. It's after these ones. We can go back to those ones right there. So Julie says, you just described my exact experience a couple of weeks ago. 63 and a 45. I expected and deserved a ticket. I got a warning. I am guessing if I had been a black driver, I sure would have gotten that ticket. I was grateful for that privilege.
But you gotta make that parallel. Were you polite and kind and put your hands where the steering wheel? Did you make that cop's job?
Were you in a safe area?
You're jumping right to, well, that cop is definitely giving me a privilege that's not, and you got to say more.
And to me, that, without knowing more, I'd be offended if I was that police officer, if I read that. I would be like, I don't give two shits that you are white. We were in a safe area. There wasn't a lot of traffic. Nobody else was in immediate danger based off of your actions. Thank God. You were respectful. You were polite. You had all the documentation I needed. This was a smooth transaction, and I recognized you're not high risk, and I will let you go. If he was in a dangerous area, lots of traffic, person had no business going that fast, maybe was a little snarky. It doesn't matter what the skin color is. You're probably getting a ticket, and the opposite person is not.
Right.
So,
but and it's just a lazy example because you jump to that conclusion, too quickly. And the best thing to do is to just ask the officer. So you're giving me a pass here. Why are you giving this to me? And I bet you they'll tell you, because I've heard cops tell this story about how they decide whether or not to give someone a pass or not. Right.
Yeah.
And let's just say the cop says something like, well, my job with tickets is whether or not I think the interaction was enough to get the person to slow down and they wouldn't create any more danger. Or if this person like really never gets in trouble at all, and this was just a bad day for them. And I know how it's a bad day as they just had a lapse in judgment or whatever. And they come to the conclusion whether this is a person that has disregard for the law, disregard for me, is definitely going to speed up right after they're gone here. And they decide whether or not the infraction or what the punishment is, the warning might be just as effective as the $300 speeding ticket. So they may have looked at Julie and said, you know what? She's definitely been shaken by this whole interaction to begin with. That's enough.
Yeah.
The other dude I just pulled over, he's been pulled over 19 times. He's so used to police interactions. He didn't give a care. I was a little annoyance, and he was disrespectful and whatever. He's definitely getting the ticket because now, and that's another thing. There are truly biased people, right? So if a 25-year-old fresh out of whatever goes to a window and there's a lady with nice cleavage that's flirtatious in the driver's seat. Well, I can make the argument that was girl privilege, and she used her sexuality that worked on a 25-year-old hormone-induced, young cop. And if I would have done the same thing, been at the same barriers, respectfully, never flirted, because maybe I should. Maybe I should flirt.
Might work.
But that is an actual bias that happens, and it's not very problematic. Right?
Yeah. And I've told this story before about a time I had to go to court because I sped through a school zone. Honest to God, not knowing I was in a school zone. I really did not. It was an area I wasn't familiar with. It was later in the day. No idea school zones are even happening that late in the day. Well, anyone who knows, if you are speeding through a school zone, it's automatic. You have to go to court. The cop can't just let you go. So I went and I was in a courtroom with a judge that was seeing multiple people that day, whole bunch of people in there. I dressed up. I had nice pants on, a blouse. I was very respectful. I made sure I had a very nice outfit on. I approached. I was very polite. All right, you're charged doing 35 in a school zone. Do you have anything to say for yourself? I said, ma'am, I honestly, I would have never purposely sped through a school zone. I would never endanger anyone that way. I honestly did not know it was. I apologize that I did it. And she's like, I believe you. I believe you didn't know. Thank God nobody was hurt. Just paid court costs, threw my ticket out. Was she giving me preferential treatment? And then I look around and everybody else in there was in sweatpants and hoodies, not standing up straight. Yeah. Not saying ma'am, not saying whatever. Did I get some sort of privilege from a female judge who was also white because I'm a white female? Or do you think she said, this is a respectable person and that is not, and that is not, and that is not?
So this is what's going to be awesome about the future. And I think no matter what, it makes everybody feel uncomfortable when anybody in a position of power has discretion, which means preference, the things I mentioned earlier, you can decide things. And I've got to prove your motive on how you decide. With AI, though, AI doesn't have discretion. What if every time you misbehaved, you got the same punishment that everybody else did? Nobody's deciding but a computer system.
Yeah.
Think of two shits what color you were. You did the thing, right?
Yeah.
You can even be rude to it. It doesn't even care. It clocks you, pulls you over, gives you in fact, the computer system in your car just tells on you when you do something. And an automated system just delivers you the punishment at will, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't just, because honestly, I think a lot of the discretion is choosing, not necessarily choosing who to go after. It's who you choose to not go after in the first place. So if I'm a cop and I'm radaring and 90% of the cars are speeding, so I get to pick whoever, right? And I love Chevy, so I'm going to get that Ford, right? So only people that I'm going to pull over, I can get everybody because everybody's effing speeding. I can't pull over everybody, so I get to choose. And now Fords are the only ones. So you look at my record and you're like, you only pulled over Fords. You discriminated against Chevys, right? And again, it's the downside instead of the benefit side of things. But could you then make the case that cop used too much discretion because they went after people who were only driving Fords?
Even though those Ford drivers were still breaking the law.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but again, discretion, in order to have adequate discretion, you have to have noble, virtuous people making those decisions where they have their own little balancing mechanism that says, man, I pulled over all these Chevys or all these Fords. I haven't gotten a Chevy in a little while. I got to make this equal and even. So now let me target Fords for a little, or Chevys a little bit, so that I can make it equal.
Yeah.
If you don't have that in you, if you're just, who's going to know? Who's going to decide? You had discretion to pull over everybody. What if your laser gun was pointed out the window? The laser gun said somebody was speeding. It told you what car that it picked because it's the first one that it saw. Now you can't pick which one to pull over. It's just that one. Now you have a fair system of being gotten, right?
Yeah. There's a couple more interesting now that we could go back. Sorry, I skipped a few to get to Julie's point. Julie says, Trump fired a black retired Army general in favor of a white Fox contributor. Do you think that was racist? Not if the Army general was not good at his job. Not if he was aging out. Not if he did something wrong. Not if he, there's a lot of things. I don't know about this situation. I don't know who that Army general was. But I feel like, could there be more to it than skin color? And somebody says, white guy replaced a black guy. Racist.
I'm suspicious always when there could be 1,000 contributing factors, and that's the one that you pick because of its social radioactivity, right?
Yeah.
I'm always suspicious of it. Now, if he said that, he was an old guy or, I found somebody better. But again, if you ask the cop why you gave me a whatever, you would then know the intentions because they would tell you. Mm-hmm. So the reporter walks up to and said, without making the charge against Trump that was a racist move, even though you don't know that it was, say, what made you pick whatever? And force the person to explain. I had everybody in my sphere to choose from. Why did I pick that guy? Here's exactly what I picked. I picked him because he's a long friend that I know will have loyal to me. The guy that I'm replacing with, he was an appointee from a different administration. I've had a lot of problems with administration stabbing me in the back and sabotaging what I'm doing. So I'm going to bring somebody I trust in this, and he happens to be white.
Yeah, and Julie, tell me, is that Fox contributor a veteran?
Wasn't it Bongino? I think she's talking about Bongino.
I don't know. The only reason I ask, maybe not, I don't know. I love hearing people complain about Hegseth. And Hegseth isn't this, and Hegseth isn't that, and blah, blah, blah. And he served, but he didn't serve. And I'm just like, to me, that's just loosely grasping. Like somebody said, oh, he gave that speech in front of all the higher ups in the military. And they're like, oh, that's funny. The lowest ranking person in the room giving a speech. I'm like, sorry, but his position has made him now the highest ranking. He is the highest ranking giving the speech at this moment. And so it's just so annoying when people are like, I just don't like this administration, so I'm going to pick and choose what I choose to look at instead of bigger pictures.
Yeah. And it's more, again, the system is always going to feed the Julies with the red meat that she already wanted to hear. So like you can even take weather, okay? Mm-hmm. And you can say, hey, there's a hurricane in the Gulf. And what's the immediate reaction from hurricane in the Gulf? It must be global warming, right? And it's because these ambush predators are just waiting for a reason to say the thing that they want to say anymore. In their head, they think everything is racist, so they look at it through that prism. So if everything's racist, then if a white guy fires a black guy, it can't be for any other reason other than that's got to be racism, and there's my deal. It's just too lazy for me. And I think the Julies of the world are too smart for that kind of bait, where I know why the media does it, and I know why the Democrats do. They want you to think Trump is a racist, mm-hmm. right? But reasonable people down below, if they're not hearing anything on the other side, and it's just acceptable to immediately make the worst charge right off the get-go without having any other data points to support those things, and you eat it up and you get exactly served what you want. You got confirmation bias, and then you have a large swath of the population that just believes that thing.
And then when you hear stories like, was it Mar-a-Lago used to not allow African Americans, and Trump turned that around, and Trump made it so that they were allowed to come. But he's racist, right? But we just don't look at that story. Look at this story.
I'm not going to play that side of the game either, because if I wished happy birthday to a friend, now that does not make me not a racist. It's a data point. If I fired a black guy, it's the origin of a conversation. 100%. And it's
but it's a data point they choose to ignore, and they only look at data points that push what they want
you're
to believe.
making the argument that they're trying to assemble logic to an end. When I just told you they waited for the thing to say, they don't want to take in another data points.
Want logic?
No, they wanted the ambush thing wants to do a thing.
Yeah.
And they're just waiting for the moment that they can capitalize on that one thing. You're making the argument that you should be different and way more pieces of logic in there.
And make more
Maybe
sense.
you didn't get pulled over because you're a black guy going through a white neighborhood. Maybe it's because you were thumping bass, you had neon lights, maybe you had weed smoke coming out the window, and your car matched the robbery that was down the road. Maybe it's those other
Ran
things.
the plates.
Or maybe the cop is just
infractions.
racist and that's just what he does. He sits there waiting for a black dude to come through town that doesn't look like everybody else, and he gets them. Both are origins of a conversation, but they're not. They're hypotheses. They are not the end result.
And Jerry had a point I know we've talked about too. Are cultural clubs racist for not allowing members of a different culture, but allow social memberships to all cultures?
And I'll make the same argument that it's a slippery slope, and it is the origin of discrimination. It really is. But if you defer that you're a noble person and you can have preference without all of those other negative things we already talked about, then you can pull it off and nobody will disagree with you.
Mm-hmm.
But your detractors, like the assholes out there, so the women are going to be like, I want my own gym, right? And then the assholes are going to pick one that like, well, we're going to do the white dudes gym, and then we're going to do the people who like pepperoni pizza gym. And then it starts getting absurd because then you've taken something where we're catering to a specific group and we're making the group identity more valuable than everybody. And it's a dangerous deal to start segregating people into those groups, because anger, animosity, and disrespect for those other groups happens really quickly when you get comfortable with putting people in those groups.
So different situations, as in have an Italian club, a Greek club, whatever club. And that's fine. They're celebrating their culture. But when now we give them grants and we give them special treatment and they become large, that don't apply to anyone else.
Yes.
And now they control a certain aspect of the marketplace or community or whatever. And no one else is allowed to even get in on that.
Common sense will say when that group it starts doing more than just celebrating each other in that group, when they start wielding power and start attacking other groups or giving only advantage. Like if you had a group of Italians that came into town, right? And they were like, hey, you know what? We're going to capture this whole thing and we're not going to give any money to any Italians, right? And so they spend amongst their friends. They're free to do that. They have a whole group of supporting each other and helping new arrivals get established in business. That has all the earmarkings of something bad is going to happen if it goes further than how I just explained. What about now when I put my opposition at a disadvantage, not a passive disadvantage, an actual disadvantage? So now I go to people and make it so that you got to deal with my group. And if you deal with any other group, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. Now we've gone from the inclusive celebrating my group to now we're using it as a weapon against other people. And we all know when that weaponization happens. Common sense.
Yep. Okay. Carter says, playing the racist game went out the window when Obama was elected for 2 terms, when Colin Powell was chairman of the Joint Chiefs and Condoleezza Rice was Secretary of State. Any more? And many more. Julie says, Hegseth was in the National Guard. I think we have seen his lack of competence.
Yeah. And as someone who wouldn't vote for him, you are free to have that opinion against him. And there are other people that are going to disagree with you, and that's all cool. You can market to me and try to get me to hate Hegseth. That's going to be a really hard battle. I really like that dude.
I've even seen OGC Cheryl, what's her face? RFK Jr.'s wife was just on The View, and they were like, I'm sorry, respectfully, he's the least qualified person in this position. And she's like, do you know this guy was a economist and this guy was a this and this guy was a that? Why is he less qualified than them? Oh, well, yeah, there's been other people not qualified either. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. Like, it's like you said, people will pick out bits and pieces of information about someone that pushes the narrative they choose to believe and ignore everything to the contrary.
Yeah. And if you waterfall that, and let's just take every dignitary, every position in government, right? And just, again, like my AI, we don't like the people that are unqualified are in position. So AI is going to pick the most qualified people and put them in every one of those roles. They're just going to spit out the names of who's qualified. I bet you're going to have a lot of disagreement when you say is the problem is given to you in the solution, and you're like, no, that's not what I meant. No, only the merit holding most qualified people. Well, what about this guy over here? He could do it too.
Yeah. And Julie, give me an example. So I really have no strong feelings about Hegseth. I don't. Great for him, not great for him. I honestly don't care. So tell me what you have seen, or what is an example of his lack of competence? What has he done that you think shows his incompetence? And we could go from there and see, is he incompetent? And if Joe has examples of amazing competence and excelling in his job, is that then measurable? And is that information you're willing to hear? That's kind of why the other day when we were talking, was it Matthew who called in? Was that his name? We were talking about Charlie Kirk, and he made a point. I don't care for this thing Charlie Kirk said. We said, pretty sure Charlie Kirk never said that. We looked it up. We got the information. Matthew he had misunderstood what was actually said. And he said, all right, you're right. I misunderstood that. I get that. And that's why I was like, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for being someone that will hear other information and not be a loon and not just be like, no, I'm gonna keep pushing back. Like, just accept that the information is information. You don't have to just blindly follow a narrative because that's just what you've believed for so long.
So, okay. So let's dig into these cabinet roles. And those of you who are listening out there, what's the role of a cabinet secretary of defense or secretary of war? What's their role? What do they do? Like, if I wanted to pick the most merited person to hit that role, what do they do on a daily basis? What do they have to be good at? What do they have to be good at in order to know whether or not they're the right person?
Well, they got to have leadership skills.
Okay. Why?
Well, because they're leading the United States military.
Are they the executive, where they are actually implementing policy and to large groups? Okay, so you got an executive role.
Yeah.
Keep going. And by the way, never mind. Okay, I'll wait.
What?
No, keep going. What else do they have to be able to do?
Probably have to be able to communicate well and be in touch with these people that are in these positions.
Okay, so they're conduit work, where their job is to have access to the president and then access to the generals, right? So policy comes down from the executive, it gets passed through that position, and it gets rolled out to the generals. Now the generals then do the other way, where they check in with with him and tell them everything that they need, whether it be machinery, or they need recruits, or what's important to the generals. So then he bounces off, as an executive would do, what comes up the ranks to him, what gets told to the president, what the president decides, and gets told back down to the ranks. Third thing would be interfacing with the public. So if you have a spokesperson, the people to see and make an association with. So the three objectives then with that position, the people that can communicate with the public, right? Perfectly communicate with the public, communicate with generals to be able to understand the plights of the military, and communicate with the president, having a good rapport. So if I'm going to pick the most merited person to do that role in Hegseth's position, if he worked for a news agency, does that mean he has pretty good communication skills with the public? Okay,
Probably.
so checkbox number 1.
Yeah.
Is he liked by the president, and is the president like him?
Yeah.
So you can effectively communicate with his boss, which is the person that's going to be deciding policy. And then the generals have to also like him based on his ability to take their problems, turn it over to the executive that's going to make the decision to then solve those problems. So that would be an easy one to audit. You go to the two people that's necessary for the communication and see if both of them are happy with his ability to translate what their needs are and translate the needs given to solving the problem. So that's step two. I'm already picking him because he's hit two of the three. Now, his experience in the industry that he represents, right? So should a CEO of, we'll say, 3M, right? His job is to run the company. Do you think he knows about any of the engineering for any of the products?
Probably.
Okay. You think he's been on the line and been in the laboratory and actually done testing on the products? Now, would you want that as a consumer, the person that's leading the company, to know the product?
Be familiar with it? Yeah.
Okay, familiar. Good.
Familiar.
An expert or just be familiar with it?
Familiar.
Okay, so how engineering works rather than if I took them in the lab and say, okay, here's some new Velcro, right? Make it better. Well, you wouldn't expect the CEO to be able to make it better, but you would also
That's why you have a job.
Exactly. But you want him to at least close enough to the end product. So having him be involved in the military, at least he knows what chain of command is, and he knows how they get assignments and what his responsibilities were, and having an association or a peripheral understanding of how the military works. That box gets checked for me too, having been in some kind of military service. So I'm going to give him and I will be the AI because I'm mostly computer anyway, but I'd pick Hexa the second time, even knowing everything that I do right now.
You know what else I would put on there? And not that I would make this so much as a requirement of the job, but something that helps with credibility, I think. Do they practice what they preach? If he's saying our troops should not be overweight, they should be physically fit at all times and always presentable and clean shaven. Is the person saying that all of those things? To me, that helps their credibility.
Yeah, that's the leadership portion of it. So I think he's a good communicator. I think he's a good leadership, and I think he has good relationships with the people that are passing information through him. I give him 3 marks.
I mean, I've never met Hegseth. I have not studied Hegseth, but I know veterans personally that have said they 100% agree with what he said and did. So I don't know if Julie is a veteran. She may be, but if not, I'm going to take the veteran's opinion and hold more weight on that than just an average everyday citizen.
But you could still be effective at an executive level without ever having touched the end product. Like you could almost take a car CEO, a car executive, and never even walk him out of the line and know what's going on. And that person can have an effective role in that company if he knows the business behind once the car's manufactured and in a lot or at a dealership. He could still be effective because in his capacity, this is what he was asked to do. So if I'm the board of directors and I pick an executive and we've been flat as far as growth goes, I'm going to go to him and say, you're my executive right now because in your history, you are good at growing margin and scaling up and adding growth to my company. I don't need you to know about I don't need you to know about engines or transfer cases or whatever. I don't care. That's not going to help you grow my company. You're being hired for the specific purpose. So with Hegseth, what do you think his purpose was?
To help reshape.
I heard 3 things during his congressional hearings when he was being voted in. Number 1, recruitment was way down. He has to be attractive to convincing people that the military is where they want to be as part of their career.
Yeah.
Okay. Second one was making a lethal fighting force that is respected and have the ability to gut all of the things that do not make us a lethal force. And those 2 things are connected because, the people who serve in the military have a lot of pride in what the military stands for. And if you take all of the woke stuff that they ingrained, it really dilutes the messaging of what the military even is.
Yeah.
And then being effective as a killing force would be third. And I think Hegseth, because he picked my 3 boxes before in filling the role, also is the right person because I think he can do the grow my car company 3% next year.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking check in my head. Just based alone on what I heard him say is going to start happening.
But the people, again, the detractors, like we'll use RFK Jr., where there are people think that he is a numbskull and he also doesn't have the merit to do what he's doing right now. Do you believe it, that he is the proper person to be in the role that he's in?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
I think he's got a background in the things he's talking about as far as, so he was an attorney, has been in multiple suits against these companies that he's talking about. He has looked into these things. I think he is open to new ideas and research. I don't think he is one track mind. I think he's willing to go wherever it's needed, or if new research comes to light, look at that and consider it. I think he considers the opinions of other people in the field. He doesn't just steamroll them and say, well, this is what I want. What you say doesn't matter. I think he's transparent, and he talks about, I'm going to keep you people in the loop with everything I do. I'm not going to hide anything from you. If I think that something should be looked at, I'm going to let you know we're looking at it. I'm going to let you all know what we're doing at all times. I think he does practice what he preaches. If he's talking about the health of the citizens and cutting out things and being more active, nobody can argue that that man is not in shape. He is at 70 whatever years old.
All right. So in the moment, I think RFK is the right person. If it were under normal circumstances, I think you could do better than RFK. So if I'm the president and I want to look at that department and say, okay, what's wrong with it? What's our objectives for fixing it? Just like the recruitment for Hegseth, what's broken in that system that we need to fix? Because we got to pick the right executive that agrees with me. That's the part that we need to fix. Mm-hmm. So the Julies of the world wouldn't see that the system is broken at all. So she would automatically say that he's not qualified, because she doesn't believe that he would be working on the things that are a priority to her. Mm-hmm. So if I'm Donald Trump and I told you exactly what he felt was wrong, so it's no surprise that he picked somebody who's good in the departments, right?
Yeah.
So if I felt like it wasn't a health system, right? It was a sickness system, then that's the origin. You want somebody to be breaking some stuff up and finding out why it's corrupt and, digging through what the pseudosciences are, figuring out what's real, and making a lot of people who are in those departments not be there anymore if you're going to fix it. And so if that's what the predicate is, he's doing a great job.
Yeah. And we don't hire one person in that position for the end of time. We've gone through multiple. So like you said, if our culture, climate, whatever changes in a couple of years and what he's doing is no longer needed, by all means, hire someone else. But I do think, like you said, I think he's the right person in that position right now.
Yeah. And I would honestly, it's probably the most dangerous assignment, because if I feel like that operation is a shill for selling pharmaceuticals and insurance companies, then it's broken in a way that if I fix it, I have the real danger of having people who are voters to be ill-affected. So I have to both fix it while it's flying and insulate the people from damage. Like once you got drug addicts out there, right? So what happens when you rip drugs away from drug addicts? Bad things happen on the other side.
Yeah.
So if I want to, through attrition, make a problem smaller by, make a problem smaller and making less people dependent on that thing, it has to be connected with eating healthier and more exercise and whatever. So it all makes sense. It encapsulates where that health portion of it is to dampen the blow when you start ripping away the addiction, nouns away from those people.
Like I've heard people say, oh, how innovative. What a new idea. He tells people to eat better and exercise. Big whoop. I'm like, do you have any idea how much that's not happening? Like you think that that's just this novel idea and everybody knows that, but they either don't, or they're not acting on it, or they don't care, or they're misinformed on how to do it. All these other things. Like if it's such a give, why are we still so sick?
Mm-hmm.
and so trapped by pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. And that's why I said it's a tough tackle, because we're picking up a timeline 50 years into a mistake where it's as bad as it can possibly get. And the one side of it has to deal with, all right, we got all these addicts. What's the best way? Well, it's double down on it. We're going to see the same thing in Obamacare. We all told you Obamacare was the worst mathematical product ever created. Everything we said would happen has happened exactly how we said it would. But now you've got a bunch of addicts that are on terrible insurance that are costing them a fortune, right?
Yeah.
Now, you can do two things. You can either keep blowing money into it and let it be a persistent problem, or somebody very unpopular is going to have to come around, pull the Band-Aid off and say, this was garbage. Sorry for getting you addicted to it, but now we have to fix it the right way. Congress is going to have to deal with it. If we get a continuing resolution, the next topic is Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, trying to fix it in ways that keeps people who are addicted to it on this point not made whole, but just not die, right? Just not get any worse. And the Democrats know that the second leg of this, they're not going to get their way, as far as they're not going to get the funding that fakes us all out to think that Obamacare isn't a disaster anymore. It's going to cost too much money. And we're already down that road. And so they hold a bargaining chip of the public for the midterm elections, that if we get to that point and it gets delayed, the theater of this shutdown, right? We don't even know how this is being used as a timing element to get certain things happen in proper time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when election comes around and you got a bad news story, you don't want to release a bad news story on someone too early, because then people forget about it and it didn't affect the election. You don't want to do it too late, because it doesn't get enough cycles to hit the most amount of pain to the person that it hurts, right?
Yeah.
You want to time it perfectly. So if you don't think the Affordable Care Act is being pushed down the line long enough so that it's most effective going into the 2026 midterm elections, I got something else for you.
Yeah, for sure. Julie addressed the Hegseth stuff.
Okay,
I feel like you get some pushback. I think you have to go up a little bit. So Julie says the Signal chat twice is why she thinks he's incompetent. Demanding,
I agree with her.
Demanding all press releases be approved by the Pentagon. Press passes were turned in record numbers.
That one. I love that one.
Yeah.
I'll even tell you what I hope happens. Keep going.
Calling all heads of military into a room to tell them they are too fat.
That was actually pretty good.
Yeah. That's not incompetence. That probably was necessary. It could have been delivered by carrier pigeon. What? But he spent a lot of taxpayer dollars and potentially put national security in danger.
You're a Democrat, so I know you don't really care about overspending, so I'm going to just strike that one out. And you'd have to make the case for putting national security in danger. Now, the Signal chat thing I do agree with, and that was stupid dumb.
Yeah. I'll give Julie one of those. Demanding all press releases be approved by the Pentagon. I absolutely see the point. I see why you would be like, whoa, red flag there. I'm curious, Julie. If you were told that, like, I don't know, 90% of press releases and things you saw in the news was absolutely false, would you want someone looking at that? Would you demand something be put in place to make sure you're getting true, accurate news? Number one. Number two, if a Democrat were in office and said, I want to approve all press releases before it's released, would you also see it as a red flag? Or would you say, oh my gosh, what if the media is running information that's not true? Would you care differently then? Because if you know for a fact that news stories have been known to be either completely fabricated or misinformed, would you want somebody taking a look at those before they are released? Or just maybe you think the media can just release whatever they want to release?
Well, and I think her argument was that if he's a great communicator, passing his information through a PR person means that he's probably not a good communicator as he claims to be. Now, I understand from the business side of things, where if you have an engineer that is just allowed to talk to the public, as an executive, I would say, you might have the details, but pass it through PR to make sure that what you say doesn't put us in any kind of problems. And it's not all the time punching it up or making it more acceptable or correcting your grammar. It's not all of a sudden taking information out of it. It's making it so it's the most palatable for whatever the executive wants to be told to the public. And I think every agency has a PR person, and that is literally their job. I really wish that Trump would have somebody who, even if it passes through still, at least somebody gets to look at it first.
Like Trump would be a perfect example of someone that should not be hired to communicate with the public.
Yeah. But he's an anomaly. You will never have another politician.
He might make good decisions. He might know good policy. He might be a good leader, but perfect example of someone that can maybe check all the presidential boxes, except really wish you would let a PR person handle this information.
But his voters, the reason he won in the numbers that he did is because he shit talked and was off the cuff, and the people said, hey, that dude is saying the same stuff I am at work, and I'm going to vote for that dude. So he almost has to, because if he did it to get elected, he might as well do it after he's there.
He jokes a lot. I've seen more and more
trolls, jokes.
A lot of things he says is meant to be funny, but because people don't appreciate that, they don't like it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you don't. I get it. That is your opinion.
But he makes his job so much harder because he does. But as long as he's the one that's paying the consequences to it,
it's like,
so be it.
If that's your personality and you just have this joking personality where you just have dark humor and you're going to crack a joke all the time, so be it. Just know that some of the population is not going to see it that way.
Right.
And
that's the risk. Like when you take, popular brands and restaurants and whatever, and somebody goes outside of the orthodoxy and starts doing something that you're like, oh, that's kind of cringy or that's whatever. As long as it's effective, then that works, right?
Yeah.
So if he was shit talking world leaders and making fun of presidents, and then all of a sudden nobody would deal with him and he couldn't get anything done, you're like, I could have told you that's not the right way to do it. But then you watch him do this shit that you would never do, and it still works out, and you're like, right?
Yeah.
How does that work? I don't know. Keep doing it.
Julie says, did you see any pride in that room of people that knew they were far superior than that boob?
We're talking military people?
Yeah, that's the Hegseth room. Julie, did you see anything in that room? This shows your bias. This shows your bias so much. You literally saw the backs of a bunch of men's heads. You didn't see anything in that room. Somebody said, oh, well, they're not clapping for him. My husband, who's a veteran, said they are not allowed to clap.
Correct.
And I don't care if Trump, and I said, well, when Trump spoke, he told them they could. He's like, does not matter. It is bad form. They are trained. You show no emotion. You sit there in silence. You do not clap. You do not snicker. You do not smile. That is what they're trained to do. So, Julie, you didn't see anything in that room. You didn't see pride. You didn't see disdain. You didn't see unapproval. You saw people sitting there doing their job in a manner that they're trained to do it. They know they're superior. Do they? Did they say that? Like, that's your bias watching this, having know nothing about anybody in that room. And I love how Carter says, you lost your argument with the name calling, Julie. Where did I hear that before?
Ooh, that was like a turnabout is fair play, Julie. That is my motto. You're going to hear me say that on every show at least 4 times.
Turnabout is fair play, Julie. You lost your argument when your name called. Julie says, freedom of the press is out the window? ?
Freedom of the press. I like this one because here's my suggestion. The fear is that the White House and they're going to stock the room with people who will not report what's going on, and it'll be just messaging and propaganda rather than real news. And the argument against that is the people that were in the room were stacked in the other direction, so no real news gets out. So you already had the thing that you say that you hope it doesn't become. It's just not controlled by the person that you don't like. So here's what I say. Nobody gets permanent credentials. Everybody gets kicked out, and the press room is open to everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. And there's different people in that room. So it doesn't become this clique where we get to high five. We're mostly nameless. Like, nobody knows who we are. The Free Beacon and the Youngstown Vindicator and the Tribune Chronicle, they get their part in the lottery. They get to show up and cover, the president one day. Now you don't have any known names there. You don't have anybody getting rich. You have no cocktail parties where it's more about the industry of media, right? It's just people that have a job. I came through the door with my little notepad. I have one chance to ask a question. I take the data, I give it to my newspaper, and if I do a really good job, people will know more stuff. So F those self-important media people, kick them all out, right? And then this would be a great checkmate for the Trump administration. Do exactly what I just said, because it's not about not having media presence. It's having that media presence. And that's going to be a good one. I'm most excited about that prospect.
Did you see where Trump, there was like a little sort of press conference and Trump went and take a question from ABC?
Yes.
And he's like, no, I don't appreciate when Stephanopoulos or whatever his name is cut off Vance. I will not be taking any questions from fake news ABC.
Yeah.
How do you feel when he does stuff like that?
Oh, I love it. I love it. And really my red line that will cross here is if the predicate of him making those decisions isn't that someone just talk shit about him or mean, because he says mean stuff, you're do mean stuff when you talk mean stuff. But if you're being untruthful as a media source, that's the one sin. If you are leveraging your position to do nothing but tell half truths and misinformation, then you don't deserve to be there, because there's plenty of good journalists who will cover it without bias. Get them in the room.
Yeah, you're not going to convince me to fight for freedom of the press if the press is corrupt and in the pocket of people.
Yeah.
If they are strictly just giving information and keeping the public informed, absolutely necessary. We should have that. But the moment you show me this news organization or this source of information is completely biased and will fabricate things to make someone look bad, no, you're no longer a credible source to me. I don't care about your freedom of the press.
My favorite kind of media is bulldog media. I love bulldog media. Jim Acosta is a good example. No matter what, he's always going to rip you. He's going to challenge you and question you. And when he was sitting in front row of every one of Trump's press conferences, he was brutal, right? Mm-hmm. And okay, well, we need bulldogs. We need people to push back and really drag things out, right? Now, I watched him also in the front row for a Biden press conference, right? Do you think he was every bit as bulldogish with his team? Now, if you are outed for being kind and considerate to one, you're just an operative. You are not bulldog as far as I'm concerned. So I liked Jim Acosta as soon as I got to compare what Jim Acosta could be when he was being friendly.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Fox News reporters that are just ass kissers. Like,
I don't want that either.
Yeah,
for sure.
I've seen it a couple of times where it's like, why don't you just get up there and hand them their point? Like, you asked a hard-hitting, uncomfortable question to this person, and then you get up to a Republican and you start your question with a statement that's insulting to the other side, then in a complimentary way, just volley this easiest question that will paint them in a good light. That's bullshit too. Like, you can't
Trump's at fault for that, because his ego actually gives more access to people who say nice things about him.
Oh, they know
so they're
catering
that they're going to get better treatment that way. And that's a Trump problem.
Absolutely.
Period.
He is the ideal. I'm going to suck up and then I have.
And they just do it. But that part of it ignores the problem that if you already have a anti-suck up captured media that's doing the exact same thing, and they're not doing it for preference, they know their seat is solid, right?
Yeah.
And so they can shit talk all they want. They can work against the Trump administration all they want. They can go their cocktail. They're safe. They're going to play that role. I want someone who's threatened that if they don't do a good job of informing the public, that they're going to be replaced, but not by the Trump administration, right? I want it to be a real third-party algorithm AI.
Yeah.
And because there was a managing group that was just as captured as Democrats. So no matter what you do, it's going to have to change, because it's just a matter of time before it gets captured. And if the Republicans were doing the same thing, I would be equally as opposed to having, a suck-up press pool as I am a all, bulldog and slanted and half truth.
Yeah. Like, know what it is. Like, there are shows on media outlets that are opinion shows. It is a commentator giving their own insight on something. So just say that. Just say, well, I'm not going to listen to, I know Tucker Carlson's not in it, but he's just come to mind. I'm going to watch Tucker Carlson's show because I like his opinion and his views. I'm not saying he's reporting factual information and hard-hitting information. It's his show.
What if we did a representative republic for media, that every area would vote their media representative to cover the politics? Like right now, I would pick, and just not even, it doesn't even have to be someone who lives in your district. It can be anyone. So I vote right now, Piers Morgan and Bill Maher to cover the press room.
Yes,
let's do
it together.
Well, you gotta
have them together.
I
would vote for that.
Yeah. So somebody who will be equally as painful on. I don't want anybody that's going to be nice and try to get extra accommodations. I want meanness for everyone.
Yeah. To me, I have really come to respect Bill Maher.
Yes.
Who is known as a Democrat, who has always been more left-leaning, who has been very outspoken against Trump, but he will be honest and give credit where credit is due. Mm-hmm. And if there is something the other side did that was good, he'll say it. If he disagrees with it, he'll say it on both sides. I think Piers Morgan is similar. I don't know.
I would say the opposite. I think both of them are a little bit more left-leaning personally. Okay. But they are such good at this. They do such a good job with their position, right? They are able to just ask the question regardless of how they feel about it. That's a level of integrity I have a lot of respect
Julie
for.
says Jon Stewart, and
I would have 10 years ago.
I was going to say, I have seen Jon Stewart clips where he is fair. Yes. I feel like
a lot of those people, again, when they behave a certain way, they're rewarded by that ecosystem that they live. So some of them would be a better journalist if you took away the pressures of the big contracts because they behave a certain way. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think Bill Maher and what's the other guy? We were just talking about him.
Oh, Piers Morgan.
I think they have behaved outside of those pressures and still done it anyway. And that's why I have respect for them. So like what's Jimmy Kimmel, right? Yeah. He's just a captured guy because he benefits from being part of that tribe. Yeah. I think he would be a little bit better if you removed him from what he felt he had to do and perform on that stage.
Yeah. Like he's sort of put up to.
Yeah. He's a sarcastic asshole who, if he just applied it uniformly, he'd be funny as hell.
Yeah. Julie says, what? I saw video around the room, saw all their faces. Number one, you saw blank stares. That's what they're trained to do. You didn't see them giving anything. Have you seen the opinions of the retired military? Yes, I've spoken to them. I invite you to check it out. I literally have. I have spoken to retired military that I know personally that liked him. Are there also retired military that didn't? Probably. Well, I'm sure there is.
Listen, in the military, right? What you feel, in your opinion, does not matter.
Correct.
It is your ability to follow what you're ordered to do and do it as the machine that you're created to be.
That's why I'm telling you, you saw nothing in that room.
Right.
Don't because think you did. If you think you did, that's your bias showing.
So you walk into mess hall and you're like, oh, I really don't like chicken. The military doesn't care.
Yeah.
What you like.
Shut up and eat the chicken.
Your opinion on what you like doesn't matter. I am crafting you into a killing machine. So what they like does not enter into. I'm sure they all like dressing up as furries and exploring all their sexual deviant, right?
Yeah.
And who cares? That's not what you're here to do in the military.
Yeah.
You're here to carry the gun, march, hit the objectives, and be a lethal fighting machine. So everybody in that audience, as long as they can do that, I don't care what they like or dislike.
Yeah. And the fact that, Julie, you can hear one side and I can hear another just shows you there are different opinions. There are different views. It doesn't mean, oh, this is what everyone in that room thought. It's when you speak in absolutes that you sort of lose it. Like, he's incompetent and everybody in there believed it. No, you don't know that.
Well, here's the test then. It's military's about respecting the authority of the people that are above and below you, right?
Respect my authority.
And so if your superior says something like, you need to get in better shape, then we can go all gauge that they might disagree. Like, that's stupid, right? Cool. Don't care about what your opinion is. But let's just see if the military body becomes in better shape, and that will be the ultimate respect that they did what they were told to do as that part of that military force, period.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know how many people, Julie pointed that out. Oh, he gets them all there to tell them they're fat. Do you know how many times I have heard a soldier say, I am so glad he said that they themselves are so sick of seeing people in leadership positions that can't do a push-up or a pull-up, or they can't run, or they can't walk.
So as a military wife, you send your husband out into theater, and you're not just a singular person when you go into theater. You have a lot of people that need to do their job too. Now, would you rather have the 6 other guys that are with your husband in a foxhole? Would you rather them be fat bodies who were catered to in all of their shortcomings, or would you have chiseled machines that were in good shape? Why would you want that?
I want the dynamic that gives him the best chance of survival.
Of coming home, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Number 1, I want them to come home alive. Number 2, I want to win the fight against the enemy.
Period. So that's a misunderstanding of military to think that we're going to be accepting of people who can't do the job they've been.
Yeah. And it's not only that, like when he talked about having a certain look, I feel like people didn't see the importance of that. When my husband was active duty and we went on vacation, and I mean, we are on vacation, he is signed out, he is on pass, he would still follow the dress and upkeep standards as though he was at work. And people would even say, like, he's like, oh, I got to shave today. Why, dude? You're on vacation. You could be out of the country. You're not even in the country anymore. We're on vacation. Go without shaving. And he's like, that's not the standard.
It's a different thing.
Yes.
It really is.
The standard is you have integrity, whether you're being watched or not. You uphold the standards at all times. And he would.
That's why the military is awesome, because they do it and they believe in it and have great pride in it.
And that's the mindset they want. If you start getting lackadaisical and, all right, go ahead, and you don't have to work out, and you don't have to shave, and you don't have to do this, what's the point? Like you said, he needed to make the military attractive and strong. Make it worth someone's while to join. Meaning, make it so that if I join the U.S. military, or I am a veteran of the U.S. military, that means something.
Absolutely.
That holds weight. And I think that's what they're trying to accomplish, is bringing that idea back.
Yeah. Thank you for that exchange, though, Julie. We really
appreciate your input. It is the decades of experience that got those men and women to where they are. They are tacticians.
So the strategy and the leadership of
the decades of experience that got them there. I'll tell you right now, they can be in that room because they went and sat in a classroom for a couple weeks. I'm not saying those people are. I'm not saying those particular people there did that. I'm saying you should know you could be in a high up leadership position in the military having far less time and experience in than somebody else. You could be an NCO or an officer. You can be an NCO that shotguns and
listen. If we just put together what the military stands for, your leadership has to mirror that, right?
Yeah.
So the people that are giving you orders, like if you're like, you got to have all this discipline and you got to stay in shape and you got to keep shaving, and you got to whatever, and you see the higher ups not following any of those guidelines, you're willing to buy into a military that has strict standards and uniformly applies them to everybody.
Yeah.
So that intelligence that we're in there, you can have both intelligence and be in good shape, have the disciplines that the people following you have.
Yeah.
Like when you see somebody, use Pritzker, or what's the guy from New Jersey, the bridge guy. Anyway, when you see somebody who's a politician who's about 200 pounds overweight, right? Do you see them differently than if you saw someone who was chiseled and had discipline and whatever? What do you picture when you have someone that can't contain their eating habits to the point where they look like a slob that can roll on the floor?
Yeah. To me,
undisciplined, right?
Yeah. Undisciplined, unhealthy, probably can't do their job, may not be around much longer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did that with RFK, and this was marketing, of course, for RFK Jr., but when they show him chiseled, banging out pull-ups like they're nothing, and then you see, what's her name? The woman that was in that position before with the blonde hair and the glasses. I don't know her name. And you're like, okay, if we're going on looks alone, who do you think is better at this job? And everyone can cry, oh, it shouldn't be looks alone. And you're right. But if that's what we're going to hold it to, if we're holding it to this is how they looked, okay, look at that example.
I mean, those people like Taylor Swift, and it's really not about her ability to sing. Or what's the jeans girl? Sydney Sweeney. Yeah, it's not about the jeans. It was never.
I'm sure she's a fabulous actress.
What do we require? What appeals to us? What suggests that somebody can do a job is a lot of things other than just merit. So
yeah.
All right. We're talking about brass, not NCOs or officers. Did you see any of those people that were slobs? Probably not. But the overall, if I'm going to say it, I'm going to show the subordinates that we're sending this message to everyone.
Do you realize that room and that meeting was not just for that room? Like, these are leaders to now implement this. That room could have been fit and in shape and ready to go. He's saying, here's what we need to watch. Push this out now to your troops. It's not like he's yelling at just those people in the seats specifically. This was broader than that. If that was her point. Yeah.
All right. We're beating a dead horse on that one. But I do want to, next time we do a show, remind me to bring up Dominion voting systems.
Dominion voting.
This was a plot twist, big time. And she brought up Fox News. So a lot of this stuff should sort of come out. So
we do have 2 minutes, by the way.
All right,
Probably
we'll
one
do a quick version of it, and then we'll talk about it fully next time about micro machines.
Okay.
All right. So Dominion Voting Machines was purchased by a Republican company, right? Dominion was charged about being insecure, and vote totals could be changed, and things that were some untrue, some true. They were just not a trusted brand. Fox News got in a lot of trouble for showing just how untrustworthy they were at a certain time. And they settled a lawsuit, almost $1 billion, because the things that were pushed out onto the news were, and I don't know the details of what was untrue, but they were held or settled, I should say. In that. And so there's a lot, because the Republicans or a Republican company took over that. I have a feeling that we're going to know much more about that case and what the origins was. And there's going to be more Dominion in the headlines than there once was.
So next week, Julie, maybe we'll be a little more on your side.
There you go.
And we'll bash that side.
All right.
Thank you, Carter.
Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us